What's going on, guys? It is Pete Nova here. Thank you so much for jumping into the stream. We have a special stream today. It is the holiday edition. Just making sure all my checks are good and we are live everywhere. So just give me 1 second and we will start jumping in to the questions. Just fill in the chat like always, guys, with whatever you may have, whether it's DST, whether it's any position, whether you just want to come in and say happy holidays and happy to talk to you guys and appreciate anybody that's jumping in. Albert is here. He said, "Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas to you as well, Albert." And we got a decent slate today. We have both teams that played early last week on Saturday here, and we got the Ravens taking on the Texans without Tank Dell. Looks like George Pickens is going to give it a go. And then we have the Chiefs taking on the Steelers. No Chris Jones. That could be a big factor in this game. And ready to kind of jump in and answer your questions. So let's just get right to it. As always, if you send a super chat in, I will ensure that you jump the line and get your questions answered. Anthony may be joining the stream later on. We'll see what happens, but as always, I'm not in my normal setup. I'm at my family's house. I only have one screen right now. So doing the best that I can to answer questions. I don't have all my technology and stuff in front of me. So just bear with me. But I'm going to do the best that I can. So give me 1 second here. I do see Fredo with a question here. Fredo with the $5 super chat. Appreciate you, man. As always, thank you so much and happy holidays. Just making sure I have everything all set up here before I give this a go. And let's just jump right into it. So Fredo here with the $5 super said Lamar or Joe Burrow this week. So Lamar Jackson plays today. He's going up against the Texans, and then you have Burrow going up against the Broncos. I will say about this Broncos Bengals game is weather-wise, it looks like it could be a slog. I don't think it's going to be very warm, and it looks like it could be windy. And so I don't know what to expect points-wise. I don't know if we're going to get the fireworks that some might expect. For me, I'm going with Lamar in this situation. Give me 1 second as this TV just turned on. Hang on. Sorry about that. So to answer this question for you, Fredo, I'm going to go with Lamar here. We had a couple people asking last week if there was, any doubts, maybe benching Lamar in a tough matchup. But, I'm going with Lamar here. He got you here. Burrow has been very good as well. But to me, I think Lamar gets the more favorable matchup. Broncos get Riley Moss back in the secondary. And, Lamar is still pushing for the MVP right now. I think he's going to continue to play hard, and I'm going to roll with him in this spot. I like Lamar here, so I would go with Lamar. Appreciate you jumping in. Backpack Jones, what's up, man? Said wide receivers, Neighbors, Pickens, or Keenan Allen. So Keenan Allen's odd man out here. I wouldn't be starting Allen now. Looking at Neighbors and Pickens here, I think for me, it would be Malik Neighbors. The volume has been there for Neighbors, and Pickens coming off of the hammy on a short week in the cold. I do worry about that a little bit. So I don't. I think I would go with Neighbors in this spot, to be completely honest with you. I don't want to risk the chance of re-injury in this situation. And I like what Neighbors has been able to do. To me, I don't think Pickens provides more upside either. So I would go with Neighbors in that spot. All right, let's see what other questions we got here. Glenn Brock sent it in a while ago. What's up, Glenn? Said, full PPR, do I start Hunt today or wait to see if Kamara is good? No backup, would then need to flex 2 between Worthy, Dobbs, Mooney, Strange, and Komet. Um, yeah, I mean, I would go with Hunt at this point. Um, to me, Hunt is the goal line guy. You're hoping he falls in for a touchdown, and I don't want to take the risk. I mean, I know Kamara looks like he wants to give it a go, but that offense looks really stale. And Kamara, if he does play, he probably does outscore Kareem Hunt. But I don't know if I want to take the chance that he doesn't play, and then you're in a really tough spot. But honestly, my advice would be if Alexander Madison or even Amir Abdullah are on the waivers, I would actually probably pivot and pick one of them up. I prefer Madison over Abdullah. And I would just probably ride this out, see if Kamara plays. If he doesn't play, I would roll with Madison if he's available, and if not, Abdullah. But that would be my advice. And then you could always pivot to Michael Carter possibly if Trey Benson or James Conner don't play. So actually, I wouldn't start Hunt. I would see if those guys are available, maybe stash one of them in this spot. And then flex 2 between Worthy, Dobbs, Mooney, Strange, and Komet. I would go with Worthy. It seems that with Hollywood Brown and Hopkins, that offense looked better last week, and Worthy is starting to figure things out. So I'm definitely starting Worthy, and then it would really be between Mooney and Dobbs, and then you have Strange.
Oh.
What's going on?
What's going on?
What's
Merry
up?
Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Yeah, it's actually good that you're jumping in because I have one screen here, so I don't have all the data to start bouncing things off. But yeah, I guess I would go with Worthy, and it'd really be between Dobbs and Mooney here. I don't know. What do you? I mean, I know you just jumped in, Anthony, so a little late. But any thoughts here?
Between what, Hunt or Kamara?
So
let's start there first. Let me get caught up.
Yeah, so I said that in my advice would be I would hold out and see if Kamara plays, and if not, I would pivot to maybe Amir Abdullah or Alexander Madison, see if they're available, and even Michael Carter possibly if James Conner and Benson are out. So I would rather wait because Hunt, you're probably just banking on a touchdown. I know Pacheco hasn't looked great, but that would be my advice.
Yeah, the Hunt usage and Pacheco usage, it's a little bit worrisome because, Pacheco has not looked the same. And then it looks like when it comes to snap percentage last week, Kareem Hunt was actually in the game for 46% of the snaps to Pacheco's 33%. But you would think with the playoffs coming, they're going to need to see Pacheco because Pacheco is going to be the guy that probably carries them through the playoffs. So I would still wait. And then when it comes to the second part of the question, Worthy, Dobbs, Mooney, Strange, and Komet, Worthy has been, I feel like, the best Chiefs receiver down the stretch so far. And they're throwing the ball more. And I think the way to beat Pittsburgh is going to be throwing the football. So I might go Worthy here. It's Worthy or Mooney for me.
Yeah, I said Worthy. I preferred Dobbs over Mooney only because I think it'll be a high scoring game with that Vikings-Packers game. And Dobbs feels like more consistent. And Christian Watson, we don't really know what's going on with that knee injury too. So Dobbs, Mooney plays the Commanders who just got back, Marshawn Lattimore too. So yeah, it's definitely Worthy for me, but I would prefer Dobbs over Mooney, but yeah.
I mean, Worthy back-to-back games, over 19 PPR points, over 10 in 3 out of his past 4. And Marquise Brown's back and Hopkins is back. But again, they are not running the football well. The defense is taking a step back. So I feel like they're going to have to throw. Like the last time these two teams played, and I know it was a few years ago, I think over 55 points were scored. It was like a 42 to 20 something game between these two teams.
Yeah. Yeah, I get so you prefer Mooney. I
prefer Worthy actually.
No, but it's pick 2.
Oh,
yeah.
Then I prefer Mooney.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Money Man came in and said, "Happy holidays to you as well." Said McMillan DJ Moore, Spears, Dowdle, or Reed in half-point PPR. I think DJ Moore is feasting on volume, but he's not getting the yards right now. And given that it's half PPR, and you're really worried. I mean, DJ Moore's stat line's usually like 6 catches and 45 yards. Like that just seems like the consistency we're getting. Spears looked really good last week again. I think it's between, for me, probably Spears or McMillan, and honestly, I think I would roll with McMillan. It would be between DJ Moore, McMillan, and Spears, not Dowdle or Reed. I think I'd probably go with McMillan or DJ Moore now that I think about it. And I think McMillan provides more upside. I think DJ Moore is probably the safer floor.
Yeah, I agree. Moore, unless he scores, he's just going to give you a high floor, which is fine. Since week 11, at least 10.9 in every single game, but he's on a 3-game scoring drought. So when he was popping for like 24 and 23, those were the games where he's scoring a touchdown. I like the matchup against Seattle. I think he's going to be a high floor play, but you look at McMillan now. McMillan is emerging as a legitimate weapon in this offense. I get he was a disappointment earlier this year when Evans and Godwin was out, but he was a featured guy. If you think back to like that when the Rams, they didn't have Puka and Kupp, and they had Demarcus Robinson as the one, and myself, I was high on Robinson, but Jim Coventry at RotoWire said like Robinson as the one is not a good player, but when he's the 2 or the 3, that's when Robinson at his best because he's not getting that top coverage. Well, McMillan, as the 2 with Mike Evans back, he is now starting to cook a little bit. I like the matchup, so I would go Jalen McMillan here.
Yeah, I'm good with that too. I think Godwin's days in Tampa Bay are probably over too. I think they probably move on, and I think they probably maybe roll with McMillan and maybe pick up another player instead of shelling out the money. Moving on here to Fredo with a $10 super. Appreciate it, man. My niece is sorry, my niece is popping in.
That's okay.
Fredo with a $10 super said, I have Puka as my wide receiver 1 and McLaurin as 2, BTJ as my flex. Evans underperformed. AJ Brown doesn't have Hurts, both on the bench. I think the thing with AJ Brown is we actually saw volume tick up, not tick down with Hurts out of the game. So, but I mean, I think in this spot, I think you're probably good with Puka, McLaurin, and I mean, you can't sit BTJ at this point. I can make the argument for Evans, but I think I'm probably sitting Brown, unfortunately. But he goes against Dallas. But I think his ceiling is capped. I think if AJ's more of a volume play at this point this week.
So Hurts, he's in a concussion protocol, right?
Yeah.
So we don't know if he's going to be activated. And Kenny Pickett's also dealing with the rib injury.
Yeah.
There's a chance that the Tanner McKee would be the next man up if both those quarterbacks can't go. And even let's say it is Kenny Pickett dealing with the ribs, like the Dallas is going to come after him. So AJ Brown does worry me a little bit here.
Yeah.
I kind of like the guys you have in there with Puka, McLaurin, and Brian Thomas Jr. Because if we like McMillan and let's say they try to take out Mike Evans, because Mike Evans hasn't been great, as Fredo was saying, you might just have to roll with what you got, which I don't mind.
No, I mean, it's a good problem to have. Puka is probably is definitely a first round pick over AJ Brown. I think next year at this point, you can even make the case that BTJ goes over AJ Brown in the draft next year. We'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, I think you're okay with what you have here. The only guy I would consider sitting is McLaurin at this point. For maybe Evans. But I think I'm still rolling out these 3 that you have
against the Falcons. No, you got to put. I'm starting McLaurin 100% against Atlanta.
Yeah, me too. Appreciate you as always, Fredo. Super generous, man. Thank you for jumping in. Alfredo Barrios, what's up, man? Said $5 super chat. Is Garrett Wilson droppable in order to get an extra DST or quarterback like Darnold? Ooh. I would still have Puka, Lamb, Terry, and Pickens. Yeah, I mean, Garrett Wilson goes up against the Bills this week. I think my worry is I don't really want to give my opponent the ability to pick up Garrett Wilson in case there's an injury throughout the
Mm.
week and he gets to roster him. So I don't think they're picking up.
Is this a move that you can hold off and kind of like play strategically and not do it until Sunday morning?
Yeah, maybe you drop him like 5 minutes before game time and he locks in, and that's probably a good idea. I guess my question would be like, if you're picking up an extra DST, the only reason I would suggest is if you're picking up one of these smash ones, like if Miami's out there, who I think you should be starting, or the Colts going up against the Giants. But I'm with Anthony here. I think you're probably going to try to drop them late and roll with that in that situation.
I tell you,
All right. All right.
what about? From a defensive special teams point of view, what about Dallas? Because of that, if Hurts is out and Pickett is banged up, or they have to go to the QB3, Dallas's defense is startable this week.
Yeah. I actually have doubt. I just put them at my 12th ranked defense. So he said he can do that. So yeah, that would definitely be the move if I were you. One more super chat, and then if anything else comes in, we'll pull those, but we'll start to get back to the regular feed. Danny, thank you so much. Said, would you start Hubbard again at Tampa Bay or Jennings? Hubbard struggled against Tampa Bay, and they have kept running backs scoring low out throughout the season. Yeah, Tampa Bay has actually been pretty decent against the running back position. The one thing I would say about Hubbard is even in tough matchups, he's found the end zone a good amount this year. Jennings and the 49ers, who do the 49ers get again this week?
I have in front of me Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, that's a nice matchup.
Hubbard, he's a tough player to sit because of how much volume he gets. But then, the predicament is, because I would probably just tell you to start him. But then you look at Detroit and how bad this defense is with the injuries. Purdy's going to have time. And Brock Purdy, with time, he's going to find Juwan Jennings. And this is, a potential shootout waiting to happen with the 49ers and Lions. As good as the 49ers defense has been, Detroit is going to be able to score points. And I think the 49ers are going to be able to score points.
And they're going to 49ers probably playing from behind in this one. I think Jennings is the ceiling play. I mean, Keenan Allen had a great week last week. Even though Dunze played well, DJ Moore played solid. I think Jennings is the ceiling play. I think if you're going for the safe play, it's probably Hubbard just because of the volume that we know is baked in. So yeah, I think Jennings is probably ceiling if you're swinging for upside.
Yeah, and I'm just checking out Tampa against running backs. Yeah, since week 12, so coming out of because Tampa was bad against the running backs early this year. Since the bye, they've given up under 10.9 PPR points a game to the leading rusher. So they've shut down Tracy, Hubbard, and Brooks, and then McCormick, Vidal, and then Rico Dowdle, who was kind of on a hot streak. So not the greatest group of runners, but good enough to where since that bye they've been outstanding. So I would go Jennings here.
Me too. Alfredo also said, by the way, I'm considering picking up Darnold because have both Nick's and Kyler's matchups this week. Nick's is in bad weather, and Kyler is just too hard to start. Honestly, I would actually be okay dropping Kyler before I drop Garrett Wilson, to be honest with you, because it's easier to insert Garrett Wilson into your lineup than it is Kyler. And if you don't think your opponent's going to start Kyler, and even if they did, like Kyler is, I mean, he goes up against the Rams, but it's a primetime matchup. And I mean, look, Kyler was probably one of my bigger misses this year, but to me, like that would be the move. Before I drop Garrett Wilson, I would drop, Kyler. And Kyler, the good thing is Kyler plays on Saturday night. So you could drop him Saturday night and he's locked in, and then you get to pick.
That's a good one. It's a good strategic move.
Yeah.
A little bit of news for this early game. It's not official, but I think this is, if anybody listening has Steelers offensive players, Chris Jones is not expected to play. And that's from Rappaport about 5 or so minutes ago. And if Chris Jones misses this game, Russell Wilson's going to have time to throw the football. And I think it even helps the running backs.
Yeah, I think it helps the running backs more than Russ. Pickens, I still worry about rolling out there with a hamstring injury in the cold weather. Cold weather and hamstrings don't go well together. So I do worry about rolling out Pickens. Fredo here said Colts or Dolphins. Yeah, Dolphins are my number one DST this week. To me, DTR, even if Winston somehow rolls out there, even with Winston, like the Browns DST is giving up the most points on the season to opposing defenses. And DTR $157 last week, 2 interceptions, 5 sacks, 6 points. I know Dolphins, people worry about them in the cold weather. But to me, it's still a really good floor play. At the worst, they maybe don't give you the smash ceiling, but they're going to give you a good floor, in my opinion. So, yeah, I'm still rolling the Dolphins, who are actually getting healthy at the right time right now on defense. And they're playing for a playoff spot. Both are, actually, to be fair. But, yeah, I roll with the Dolphins. Luis Perez, $2 super, said Geno, Russ, or Penix, half-point PPR, Hawkinson or Chig, and then defense, the LA Chargers or Seattle. I'll answer the easy one first for me. I like the Chargers coming off extended rest. Seattle, I just worry about defenses. Sometimes it's late in the year and teams playing on Thursdays, bumps and bruises, and they're going into a cold weather environment in Chicago. But I do like Seattle, but I prefer the Chargers. For the quarterbacks, you just mentioned Russell Wilson. I actually really like Geno this week.
Ooh, really?
I do. If you look at what he's done the last few weeks, he's actually been pretty solid. And Penix is an interesting play against the Commanders, but he's still a rookie. I think I roll with Geno here out of these 3 guys.
I'm looking into Chicago's defense, and that's the part that worries me. What version of this Bears secondary? Because they were lights out all year, and then obviously as we've gotten a little bit later to the season, their secondary has been a little bit leaky. But Goff lit them up last week, but they managed to hold down Darnold, who was hot, to right around 15. Purdy had a nice game, so I don't know. This one worries me a little bit with this Chicago defense.
Yeah,
where I can make a case for Russ with Pickens back. He's a different quarterback, and I like that Chris Jones is not there and it's home. And then the other really interesting one is Penix, because Penix played a solid game for his first NFL start. It was against the Giants, but Penix, didn't do a lot for fantasy, but 18 for 27, 200 yards, and an interception. Not bad for his first start. I think this is going to be a game where there's going to be garbage time potential. I just don't know if I'm ready to stomach Michael Penix right now in the fantasy championship. I think if this was earlier in the season, I would roll with Penix. But as for right now, it's between Geno and Russ. I don't know, Pete. You like Geno more than Russ? Because I think I like Russ more.
I'm just getting a vibe, man. I was looking at it earlier this week, and I just feel like we're going to get a good Geno game. For what it was worth, against a good Vikings defense in bad weather, Geno, he threw some interceptions, but he still played a good game fantasy wise. I think he put up 20 fantasy points. This Bears defense, I know what you're saying. They're banged up though, and that worries me a little bit too. I know it's a short week, but Russ has an even shorter week, and they got kicked in the teeth last week. So this is a Chiefs team. Don't get me wrong. Chiefs are playing for the 1 seed. They're not taking their foot off the gas. Even with Chris Jones out, I'm sure they were operating off the assumption that he probably wasn't playing all week, and preparing that way. So. Yeah, I lean Geno, but it sounds like you're on Russ.
I think Russ is the safer play, and Geno would be my upside play.
Yeah. Now, Hawkinson or Chig is interesting. I know. If you're on Twitter, everybody has seen the pump up of Chig, and Mason Rudolph has been hyper focused on him. And then you get Hawkinson in this game against the Packers, and Packers defense has played really well. Hawkinson had a solid game last week. Chig, I think Hawkinson is the safer play. I think Chig might be the ceiling play if you're chasing points. But I think I roll with Hawkinson still.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Hawkinson too. Chig is, he's been one of the more perennially disappointing tight ends in fantasy football. I know, if you like the late round targets, Chig hasn't really come through, and it's the end of the year, he gives you some nuggets to bite on, gets a nice matchup against Jacksonville. But again, are we willing to trust that when it's all said and done in the fantasy championship, where, Hawkinson's been a little bit inconsistent, but at least he brings a high floor. And I do like this matchup against Green Bay. If there's a weakness in the defense, they're 24th against tight ends. And I think this is going to be a competitive football game, unlike what we saw on Monday Night Football. I think there's going to be highly competitive between the Vikings and the Packers.
Yeah, I do want to say we have 72 people here on YouTube. If you are here, we appreciate you guys spending the holidays with us. Of course, hit that like button. We're going to try to go as long as we can and answer. But obviously, like we always say, super chats take priority, guys. Even if it's just $1, we'll make sure we answer you. But just appreciate it and make sure you just hit that like button.
And we're at 4783 in terms of sub count. If there's 70 people in here, you're not subscribed, let's try to get to 4,800. It's Christmas.
Yeah.
Playing a Christmas card here, folks.
Fredo, again, extremely generous, said Neighbors or Debo. I happen to like Neighbors this week, but I think Debo, if we're operating off of, hey, high scoring game, playing from behind, we like Jennings. I don't know if Garendo is going to go with that hammy. And even if he does, these 49ers running backs get hurt mid game how many times this year? I think I roll with Debo here, and I do like Neighbors this week, but I think I like Debo in this spot, and I'm willing to roll the dice. I think Debo's the higher ceiling. I think Neighbors is probably the higher floor because we know Drew Lock's going to probably target him at least 8 times.
Yeah, I'm here on Debo. He finally showed some signs of life, maybe a little bit too late for some Debo managers, but, he pops for 25. He showed us the ceiling, and that was a good Miami defense. This is a bad Detroit defense, and again, I think this is going to be a spot where we're going to see a lot of points in this football game from both sides, and I get the 49ers are eliminated. These guys are playing for pride. And especially somebody like Debo Samuel, if this is his final run with the 49ers, I think he's going to want to go out on top.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Alfredo, again, appreciate it, said, I just picked up the Colts at Tampa as well. Do you have an idea of what defense I should start for Week 18? I actually forgot that people play their championships in Week 18. Yeah, it's always tricky because, there's the possibility of resting starters. You look at, you could hyper target like whoever's playing the Eagles next week, which is actually the Giants. So I'm probably not doing that. But if you're trying to play the game of teams that maybe sit starters, I mean, Chargers against the Raiders could be a good option next week. Obviously, even with the Bills get the Patriots again, they could be playing for something. I think the Dolphins get the Jets. It's kind of tough. Let me know who you have. Maybe that would be a little bit better who's on your waiver wire, because it's just really tough to kind of project right now because we just don't know who's going to be playing for something and who's not. And teams may sit starters next week. I mean, we've seen teams sit starters just for incentives, like where they don't want guys to hit the incentive bonuses. And so they'll sit starters because they're out of it. And also as a way to maybe lose another game to help draft position. So, I think that would be kind of my thing there. I may have missed this one. There might be some other super chats in here that I didn't realize. Luis, and then I'll get to Hernan. Oh, you know what? No, you guys just sent those in. I'll get to you in a second, Hernan. Sit one here. Shakir, Worthy, Thielen. Shakir gets a tougher matchup against the Jets. Adam Thielen and the Panthers get the Bucks. I think I'm sitting Shakir here. I'm starting Worthy and Thielen, I think.
Same here. Thielen gets the dream matchup against Tampa Bay. You can't sit him in that spot. I think we are both on Worthy today with the type of usage he's getting. And again, the fact that this is the crazy thing about Kansas City, by the way, it's like their defense carries them. All of a sudden, their defense takes a little bit of a step back mid-season. Now their offense is coming to form. And part of that, hey, we can't run for some reason with Pacheco back. All of a sudden, they're distributing the football really well. Even with Marquise Brown back, getting 8 targets. Worthy pop last week.
Yeah.
So, I think Shakir's going to be the odd man out.
And Worthy looks like he's starting to figure this thing out a little bit, which good for him. It doesn't always happen right early on. And to be fair, and I think you were on this as well, like beginning of the season, like we said this, like Andy Reid tends to ease in his rookie wide receivers. People will talk about Deshaun Jackson, but I mean, he had a couple pop games, Deshaun, in the beginning of the year, and then he banged out a lot of strong stretches towards the end of the year in his rookie season.
If you remember last year with Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice last year, rookie, his first game of the year, he has like 1 or 2 touchdowns, doesn't do anything for a good 10 weeks, and final stretch starts to come on. Same with Worthy. Worthy had 1 or 2 scores in week 1, kind of quiets down, and then the year starts coming on. Like some rookie receivers, it takes them time. That's why people are out of Marvin Harrison Jr. Year 2, maybe this guy goes off. I'm not ready to call this guy a bust yet.
Yeah, I'm more worried about Kyler than I am with Marv in that situation. Hernan Ramos, what's up, man? Said 2 questions. Full PPR. Have Adams, Wilson, JSN, Sutton, Neighbors, London. Need 2 wide receivers and a flex. We'll tackle that one first. I think at this point, look, Aaron Rodgers is dealing with an MCL, I think, which does worry me a little bit. I think you're definitely starting Sutton. I know the weather is a little shaky in that game. Honestly, I think I'd be okay with rolling London. He looked fine with Penix last week. I think you're probably rolling Neighbors, and I actually might be okay sitting Sutton. Adams goes up against the Bills, and Rodgers I worry about in this matchup because he's dealing with that injury.
So who are you going with?
I think I'm going Neighbors, London, and Sutton in this spot. I mean, I maybe JSN. That's the kicker. I could be swayed on sitting Sutton for JSN, but that would be the swap. I think Neighbors and London are probably locked in for me.
I can't sit Devontae Adams.
I figured
he is. I mean, since coming to the Jets in week 9, he has 11 targets in all but 1 game. He's on a 4-game run with at least 11 targets. He's over in the past 4 games, 17 PPR points in all of them. I think you could throw on, if there's anything you do on a Bills, you could throw on them.
Yeah.
So I can't sit that volume right now.
Yeah.
So and Drake London is the one I'm worried about a little bit here. I think he had a little bit of an injury last week. I think he'll play, but I would sit. I'm sitting Drake London for Adams and JSN. He's the other one that's hard to sit.
Well, I mean, look, if you're riding the dogs that got you here, probably Adams and JSN then at that point, and then it's probably between Sutton, Neighbors, and London if that's the route that you want to go.
JSN, even with DK Metcalf coming back, he's right since week 8, double-digit PPR points in every single game, and this run he's been on or since week 11, all but 1 game over 18 PPR points, back-to-back games over 12 targets. And that's with DK coming back last week to playing well. So yeah. I think I don't know. I'm not a guy. I can't sit that type of when you're on that type of street, that type of volume. I'm going to go Adams, JSN, and Sutton.
Yeah, I think Sutton. You could probably likely the most likely guy out of Neighbors, London, and Sutton. Sutton probably scores a touchdown out of those 3. And again, these are 2 teams fighting for a playoff spot. And to me, I think Denver's going to try to get Sutton heavily involved in this.
And Indy is still playing for a playoff spot. Like Neighbors dealing with a toe. It's Drew. Yeah,
and Drew Lock is banged up right now too, but they did say he's going to play.
Yeah, I feel like this Colts defense is a little bit wonky where they can really turn it on at times. Yeah. And I don't know. I think I'm sitting. I'd rather sit Neighbors for Adams and JSN. I'm not sitting those guys.
Okay. And then for Connor, he said, I have Connor. Should I pick up Edwards, Abdullah, or Kendre Miller? Yeah, I mean, the Chargers have a solid matchup this week. So I can understand Edwards, but he popped in like 2 big runs. It's tough. Abdullah is getting volume. I don't really know about Kendre Miller here. I think Kendre Miller is definitely the one I'm sitting just because I don't trust that offense right now. I think I would go with Edwards for a floor and Abdullah probably ceiling. It sounds crazy enough to say because Abdullah is just getting work in the receiving game, and in PPR that's valuable. So I think I would roll with Abdullah for the ceiling and Edwards probably for the safer floor.
Yeah, Abdullah back-to-back games with 19 PPR points, but as Pete said, it's all volume. Even going back to week 12 against Denver, where it was his other big output in the second half, 17. He had 6 targets and 5 catches in that game. Madison did score last week, but so did Abdullah. So I would go Abdullah here. I like Abdullah. Gus is dealing with an ankle. I guess he would be the floor against New England, and forget about Kendrick Miller. That Saints, what we saw on Monday Night Football, I don't even know if they can score against Alabama. Like, I get they're NFL players, but that was bad. That was real bad.
Yeah. The next one's interesting, but I think it's easy. Alfredo said McBride or Jonnu Smith. Look, we know how Miami looks in the cold weather on offense, at least. I understand that Jonnu Smith looks enticing. Trey McBride gets a good matchup against the Rams, and I understand the hesitancy of not wanting to trust him. He was open on a lot of plays last week, but when you look at Trey McBride outside of last week, he only had 2 games early in the season between week 1 and week 3 where he scored under 10 PPR points. I think I'm still going to go with McBride because coming into last week's game, 15, 12, 14, 10 targets. Like, he's had 10 or more targets in 4 out of the last 5 games, and he gets a solid matchup against the Rams. I just don't really love that Miami offense in the cold weather.
Yeah, I'm going to see the matchup favors Jonnu. He's been red hot. I get what you're saying with the cold weather, but does that help Jonnu Smith even more with the short and intermediate routes? Like, I think maybe this might downgrade somebody like Tyreek Hill and upgrade, Achane and Jonnu even more. And then the other side, you have Trey McBride, who's having this unprecedented season where he can't score a touchdown. And the one blemish is in a slam dunk matchup last week where he just doesn't show up. And again, that's probably more on Kyler than anything else. I think I'd ride Jonnu here and play that matchup against Cleveland because, Cleveland, their defense against the tight ends, like we saw Michael Pruitt score last week and Cordarrelle Patterson, which he's a little bit more of a gadgety player. Well, so is Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith is a very versatile player in that offense.
Yeah, I'll still lean McBride. I know it was one bad week, but to me, 25, 21, 14, 17 points before last week. And then obviously he had 5. He was open. I think they're going to make it a point to get him the ball after a bad week from Kyler last week. I think they probably look at the tape and try to get that right. And it's in a dome in warm weather against the Rams. But I can understand going Jonnu. I think you're good probably either way, but I prefer McBride. Mike King, what's up, man? Said, need one DST, Bills, Raiders, and Seattle. Also, Kyler or Anthony Richardson in a half-point PPR. So Bills for sure with a hobbled Rodgers. They didn't look great against the Rams last week in terms of the Jets. And Bills got punked last week a little bit. Now, they ended up recovering, and they had played really good in the second half. But to me, Sean McDermott was pissed off. This is a team that's still playing for the 1 seed. I know people are worried because, look, if KC wins today, then the Bills – can't get the 1 seed. So does that factor in? But I'm not really too worried about that in this play. I'm going to go with the Bills to get right, even though they did have a good week. They finished top 4. They were the 4th defense on the week. And then for Kyler and Anthony Richardson, I'm going with Anthony Richardson in this matchup. He's both guys can run, but Anthony Richardson at least getting into the end zone when he runs. And I'm good with the matchup against the Giants.
Yeah, I'm all in on Richardson here. And this is, there's a lot of heavy debate. We've had it on this show about Anthony Richardson. We even have it internally in our group text. The dangerous thing about Anthony Richardson, he had 23 fantasy points last week, and he threw the ball 11 times.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the type of upside and ceiling this guy brings on a week-to-week basis. And, since the benching, every game in the 20s outside the one against Detroit in week 12, I'm going to go Anthony Richardson. I think maybe maybe they finally unlocked him. And, and Jonathan Taylor running well also helps Anthony Richardson. It's the Giants. Again, this is a defense that I don't know if they packed it in, but they really can't stop much on the ground right now.
Yeah. I mean, this is a team that's for what it's worth. I mean, guys, the whole tanking thing is tough because to me, guys, especially a team like the Giants, these guys are playing for jobs next year. So I don't think these players, they're still trying to put out good tape for their next team. But I think they're sorry right now.
If there are 53 people on the roster, right, I would say 43 of them are playing for a job.
Yeah.
if you have, there might be 10 guys on every NFL roster with a guaranteed contract. If it's not a contract from their own team, they have a deal somewhere else because they're one of those top end players in the league. Every other player, we've seen a lot, especially I remember when I was a little bit younger, before I got into this business, like good linebackers on the Cowboys, and all of a sudden they're just out of the league. And it's like this guy had 120 tackles, interception. Like, why isn't he on a team? It's because NFL teams, you can pay a veteran the veteran minimum, or you pay a rookie the rookie minimum, probably get close to the same production. So every one of these players, outside of the more notable ones, they're playing for something. Even these coaches, Daboll doesn't know if he has a job next year. You think he's trying to tank to make the Giants better, or does he want to show the rest of the NFL, hey, like I was coach of the year candidate for one reason or another a couple of years ago. So yeah, I don't believe in the tank thing.
And he also is saying, Daboll is probably saying, hey, look, like I was able to keep my guys playing hard, toward the end of the season. TM42 with a $2 super said, start two, Mahomes, Anthony Richardson, or Chase Brown. I'm going with Anthony Richardson. I don't think you could sit Chase Brown. I know Mahomes in this offense has looked better. I totally understand it. I get it. But to me, I think you're starting Richardson. He's giving you, like Anthony said, 20 points. It's pretty much his floor since he got benched. And Chase Brown's red hot. I mean, I know he didn't have a stud game last week, but I get it's the Denver defense. But the Denver defense is, for what it's worth, as a Broncos fan, like they're good, but they're not elite. They have feasted off of turnovers that has kind of boosted what their output looks like. And to me, I'm rolling with Chase Brown and Anthony Richardson here.
I'll sit Brown. I'm not sitting Mahomes. I just can't do it, or Richardson. I get that super flex position. You can do fun things with it, and it's not like you have, it's Mahomes, or like Richardson. Your other quarterback is Rodgers, or Mac Jones, and okay, Chase Brown's a better play. Mahomes has been playing good. This Chiefs offense, they're more throwing dependent. And Richardson, we just talked about the type of stealing he brings. Chase Brown had a little bit of a dud last week. It was a tough matchup. I like the matchup a little bit more, but Denver's playing for a playoff spot. They're playing for positioning right now. And I think this is the type of game where they try to light up Cincinnati, who's, I don't think they have anything to play for at this point.
Yeah, I think for me, if there is a possibility that maybe Denver can neutralize the pass game, I think it funnels a lot of stuff underneath to Chase Brown in the receiving game. I don't think he does a ton on the ground, but I do think he catches a decent amount of passes. But I honestly think you're in a good spot in this situation with whoever you end up rolling with, to be honest.
Technically, Denver's still alive. I mean, not Denver, Cincy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this is a huge week. This is a huge week. If Denver wins, they're in, and Bengals are eliminated. Colts and the Dolphins are all eliminated. But there's a lot going on this week. I mean, if Denver loses, they get Kansas City, who may rest starters next week because they lock up the 1 seed today. So a lot going on. But I think you're okay no matter what route you go. I just think Chase Brown and Richardson provide higher upside. Tyler Sparrow said if Hurts it doesn't clear Stafford or Bryce Young this week. Stafford goes up against Arizona in a dome on Saturday night, prime time. And then you have Bryce Young this week going up against the Bucks, who, I mean, I'd be curious to know what Bryce Young did against the Bucks last time. I think he had a couple weeks back, and it's a bad secondary. I think I might roll with Bryce Young in this situation.
So Bryce, that was his second game, because the first good Bryce game was against Kansas City. And then he popped against his Tampa defense, albeit it was at home. But it was his second best fantasy outing of the year. And I don't even know if Thielen was back at that point yet. He might have been. Yeah. And on the other side, you have Matthew Stafford. Didn't have to do much last week. But Arizona, they might be eliminated. They want to try to play spoiler, right? Like this is like their Super Bowl. When a team's out of it, they want to go try to knock their division foes out of it. Stafford, a little bit erratic against the Cardinals. I might go Bryce Young here. Is that nuts to say that we're both in on Bryce Young over Stafford?
No, I don't think so. The matchup's there. And I love Matt Stafford. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks, if not my favorite in the NFL. I think he's still playing good ball. But yeah, I'm going Bryce Young.
Yeah, these numbers for Bryce Young. Wow. Like since the benching coming back, he's like a totally different quarterback.
Yeah. We have 70 people here still on YouTube. We are at 23 likes, guys. Hit those like buttons. We would appreciate it very much. So Keebs with a $2 super said, for half PPR, Pickens, London, or Keenan Allen. I think Keenan Allen's odd man out here. I know he's been hot. I know he's been playing well. But against Seattle in the cold, their defense has been good. Secondary has been good. And I think I worry about Pickens again with the hammy. Now you talk about London, who got banged up a little bit last week. But I think it's between London and Pickens, and you got to make this decision today, at least on Pickens. I think I'm still rolling the dice with London here. I think London is the safest play. I also think he still probably provides the highest upside to me, but I can understand going Keenan Allen. I just worry about Pickens in the cold weather. I don't want to have a situation where first day of the fantasy football playoffs, probably I think first game, you have a guy go out in the game already, and I just worry about that with Pickens. And I could be wrong; he could have a blow up game today. But to me, I think they're going to run the ball more than they throw it.
I kind of like Keenan Allen. Another red hot receiver getting volume. 3 out of his past 5 with 13 targets, including 2 straight. He's getting it done every which way. And Seattle is a really good matchup. And it's a home game for Chicago. I like Keenan Allen.
Yeah, I can understand it. When I said Keenan Allen odd man out, the more I talked about it, I felt like Pickens really was actually the odd man out.
London worries me for some reason. I don't know why.
I mean, I don't know. I like the matchup for him. I mean, I know he goes up against the Commanders and Marshawn Lattimore. I guess I can understand the Keenan Allen thing, but to me, I just think London provides the highest upside. Maybe Keenan Allen does provide the safest floor because the target share has been there. London last week in his first game with Penix had 8 targets, 5 for 59, and had 10 points in PPR. I think London provides the highest upside, but I think Keenan Allen maybe does have the safest floor. Now, straight zesty with a $5 super chat. I got to find your comment here. It may take me a little bit to scroll through. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull another super chat, and Anthony will talk, and then we will pull your question next while I wait for it.
G. Medina, half-point PPR. He needs 2. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Juwan Jennings, George Pickens, Adam Thielen, Jalen McMillan. Really nice set of players here. You only need 2. Not sitting on Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's one of those situations. Start your studs. Plus, we know that they have to throw the ball a lot more with no Montgomery and the shape of this defense. So it comes down to Jennings and Adam Thielen. They're both in outstanding matchups. On one hand, you have Jennings in that Amon-Ra St. Brown matchup, and then you have Adam Thielen against Tampa Bay. I might lean I think I lean Jennings by a hair over Thielen.
Yeah, I mean, you're starting St. Brown, of course. McMillan, I could be swayed. I think I go with Thielen here. For me, I think Thielen provides the safest floor. I think Jennings is probably the highest upside guy, and I think McMillan's somewhere in the middle between the two, where he provides higher upside than Thielen, but he provides more risk than Thielen. I think Jennings provides the highest ceiling, but I think there is possibly some risk because we keep saying it with this 49ers offense that, we think that they'll get going, and then they don't. Now, Deebo Samuel is also getting in the mix the last 2 weeks. He didn't provide a good week 2 weeks ago, but he did have a good week last week, and they showed that they're not afraid to keep going at him. I think I'm going to go with Amon-Ra, and I guess I would go with Jennings here for ceiling. And then if you're going for the safer play, Thielen, and if you're looking for just a little more upside, I would go with McMillan, who I do think has a safer floor than Jennings, but provides more upside than Thielen. Now, I did find the comment from Straight Zesty after his super chat. This one's a little tougher. He said, Thielen, Worthy, McMillan, or Harrison, pick 2. I think Worthy's locked in for me. I think you probably would agree at this point. Marvin Harrison Jr. I gave him out a couple times last week, and that bit me. And at this point, he's not a guy where you're saying ride with your stud, because he's just not a stud this year. So I think Harrison's definitely out of these four. I don't want to start him the most, actually. I think same thing with McMillan and Thielen that I just said. McMillan's the higher upside guy, and I think Thielen's probably the safer floor. But Worthy's locked in for me.
Yeah, I like Worthy, Thielen, and then McMillan would be my third if you had a pivot for whatever reason.
Yeah. A lot of super chats, guys. We appreciate everyone that's supporting us. It's been a great season. As always, is it Thursday or Wednesday?
Wednesday. It's Wednesday.
Yeah. So we'll be live tomorrow, most likely. As always, we'll be live Friday. Saturday, I'm not super sure. We have some games. Maybe we'll do like a surprise stream
in the morning.
And then Sunday. So we'll still be here if we can't answer everybody today. But as always, super chats take priority, guys. People are paying to have their questions answered, so we have to answer them first. But we do appreciate it. DJ Quill. And one thing I would say too, if you guys, I mean, a lot of these questions are similar with similar players that you have. If you're waiting for your question to be answered, I mean, McMillan's been in this question for the last three. If you have a question about McMillan, just pay attention, and your question might already be answered based on somebody else's question. Pick 2 PPR, DK, JMO, or McMillan here. DK gets in the end zone last week. We expect it to be a higher scoring game against the Packers. Jameson Williams had a monster game last week, and no David Montgomery. Expect that to be a higher game too. I think JMO is locked in for me with how he's looked. The boom is just too high to ignore in the championship game. I'm going for that upside. I think JMO is locked in, and then it's between McMillan and DK. This one's a little bit tougher for me. Do you have a lean on that? And is JMO locked in for you?
My lean, let's start. It would be sitting DK Metcalf. I get Metcalf finally got into the end zone, but that's literally all he did. 3 of 7 for 57 and a touchdown. I don't know. Like like JSN is the locked and loaded wide receiver 1 right now in Seattle. Yeah. He seems more trustworthy, and he's red hot rapport with Gino. Like I don't know if that touchdown was enough to sway me back into DK Metcalf when you have Jalen McMillan, who is one of the hotter wide receivers in the NFL, and I like his matchup. And Jameson Williams, like the matchup on paper against the 49ers isn't great. Number 1 against wide receivers. But like this Detroit offense, that's not like any offense. Ben Johnson schemes guys open. I mean, you saw it last week with that weird fake fumble play. Like he gets it done. I don't know if the 49ers are going to be able to stop it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think he said DK too, like pretty much like you said. I mean, he's touchdown dependent at this point. And McMillan is carving out a role in this offense. Michael Newcomer with a $2 super said McMillan, Worthy, Shakir, DK, Metcalf, DJ Moore, pick 2. This is PPR. I think again, I'm going to go with Worthy here. I think Metcalf is a sit. And then it's really between DJ Moore and McMillan for me. And I think McMillan provides higher upside. I think DJ Moore provides a safer floor. We've seen Worthy. I mean, though he's been hot, I think I would go with Worthy and DJ Moore just because DJ gives you a safer floor. He's getting pretty much, he's locked in for 7 touches a game, 6 to 7 for around 50 to 60 yards. So I think I like having a floor play there with solid okay upside with DJ Moore. And then I think I would go with Worthy because, yes, he has been hot and we're giving him out a lot, but there is risk. I mean, there are more people in on this offense. I think Worthy is a really good play today, but, I think I don't want to go with 2 boom guys and risk McMillan and Worthy have just been, hot, but they were streaky all year. So I'm going to go with Worthy and DJ Moore here over McMillan and the rest.
I'm going to say Worthy's got to be, and I was in on him. You were in him all day. It's between DJ Moore, McMillan. I'm going to lean Jalen McMillan over DJ Moore. I'm going to again. It's the matchup, and it's the fact that he is one of the hotter receivers, getting some volume, finding the end zone. Where in Chicago, it's almost like the direct opposite, where Keenan Allen seems to be the hot guy with the nose for the end zone right now. and
Yeah.
bringing that higher ceiling where DJ Moore high floor, which is nice, but we're getting more floor and ceiling from McMillan right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Like, depends on your matchup. Like, if you're chasing points, and today, if you start Worthy, I mean, you're gonna get a better feel. If Worthy busts today, you might say, all right, I prefer going with McMillan because he's gonna give me higher upside. Or you might say, I want to just get DJ Moore because I just want the locked in at least minimum 10 points that I know I'm getting. Now, this one's interesting. Fredo said, who is the number one pick in next year's fantasy draft? Alshon Jenti, Boise State, is on my radar. I don't know if this is Dynasty. We can spin both ways. From a Dynasty perspective, Jenti probably is locked in at the number one, depending if it's super flex. Your league mates might prioritize the quarterbacks with Shador and Cam Ward more. But Genti's a top 3 in Dynasty for sure after the quarterbacks at minimum. And then honestly, it's far out, but I don't mind, throwing this in here. But honestly, I think Devon Achane very much could be number one pick next year. It really wouldn't surprise me. There's a lot that's going to happen from now until then. But he didn't miss a game this year. I think it's probably Genti or Bijan at this point, because if Michael Penix can play well the next 2 weeks and this offense looks good, people might get back on this offense, and Bijan's played well this down the stretch here. So I think it's probably between Achane and Bijan, in my opinion, because CMC's likely going to be a second rounder next year, and you might get some good value there depending on your risk tolerance if you want to take them.
Yeah, dynasty wise, like in a dynasty rookie draft, depending on now, if Genti goes to a team like, I forgot who I was talking about this with, but what if Genti goes to a team like Baltimore, right? Let's say, sometimes running backs are devalued and all of a sudden he falls to the back of the first round. They know that Derrick Henry has a year left. They draft Genti to be their future. Obviously, I don't think he's a number one overall pick in Dynasty in that situation. But if he goes to a team with an open running back room, then Genti is my 101. The only other case is depending on where McMillan or Luther Burden go.
Yeah.
But, there you're probably your, non-super flex top 3 rookies. And then as far as redraft, Saquon Barkley, there's a really good chance he's the number one player off the board. And I love Achane, but I would probably put Achane number 2 behind Saquon because Saquon's getting the volume.
I can make a case for Barkley for sure too. A year older, but I'm not super worried. I mean, we saw a lot this year with the 2 high shells, a lot of less loaded boxes. And here's the thing about the NFL, and I said this before this year too. The NFL goes through cycles, right? Where it's usually around 5 years where, defenses start to draft faster, smaller guys to cover the pass, and offenses start to get in on that. And so they start to run the football more. And then eventually defense is a year, 2, 3 years behind. So they start to kind of draft bigger linebackers and bigger players, and then they start to throw the ball more. And so in that case, running backs are probably going to have another good year next year. I don't think this is going to just be a 1-year thing where, running backs had a big boom this year and it was just a fluke. Like, I do think that running back is going to be the priority next year. And honestly, when it comes to Genti, I mean, I'm selfish, so I would love to see him go to Denver with Sean Payton. I think that would be awesome.
Wow.
That could be definitely a fit because they're definitely in the market for a running back. Maybe they get that kid from Missouri too. I like him as well. I'm going to pull this one and then I will be right back, but Anthony will answer.
So we have Dom Stone with a $4.99 super chat. Kelsey, Waddle, Spears, Abdullah, DeAndre Hopkins, full point PPR. He has tight end filled with Jonnu Smith already, who I like this week. So it looks like you need one. I don't know. Maybe Kelsey might be the play. And it's really risky because if you look at your other options, you got Pollard dealing with Spears, even though Spears is getting some more work. Abdullah, back-to-back games with 19 PPR points. But a lot of that is he's more PPR reception dependent, which he has been getting. Hopkins, I don't trust right now as much as I did. He's bringing a high floor, but we saw last week, I believe Marquise Brown had 8 targets, only playing 27% of the snaps. I think that target, as he plays more snaps, he's going to be more involved. But what people forget, DeAndre Hopkins, trade deadline edition. Marquise Brown worked with Mahomes all offseason long. So that rapport's kind of already there. And then you have Waddle coming back. I just want to check his injury status here for a second as I'm going through these players. But we look at Jalen Waddle, wasn't active last week against San Francisco, dealing with the knee. He would get Cleveland this week. Cold weather, he would be in play. But like Travis Kelce today, I feel like he might be the safe play. And Kelsey's been hard to trust this year overall. Pittsburgh, they're a little bit leaky against the tight end position. He's getting the targets. Like, they get the production's been in the high single digits, but at least 7 targets in 2 out of his past 3 games. I would go Travis Kelce and just play it safe. If you did need more ceiling or upside, I would roll the dice on Waddle if he's active. And then if not Waddle, I would go to Abdullah. But yeah, that's a little bit of a tough one where I get Kelsey's been hard to trust, but I think, call it a hunch. This might be a Travis Kelce game against Pittsburgh because, again, that Steelers defense is extremely, extremely leaky against the tight end position. I'm trying to scroll up and see where we are. It looks like we have C. Will with a $1.99 super chat. And then he is asking Pickens, Cup, or Flowers to sit one. So we got Pickens going in just about 33 minutes. Zay Flowers or Cooper Cup, he needs to sit one.
Yeah, this is tough. Cooper Cup is a tough read this week. I think I'm definitely starting Flowers against. I know he's got the shoulder injury. I'm more worried about soft tissue injuries than I am worried about like stuff like shoulders and those kinds of things. So I think Flowers for sure, and then it's really between Cup and Pickens. Cup has had a tough 2 weeks, and he was on fire before that. I think Cup in prime time though. I think I'm going to roll with Cup and Flowers here, but it is close. But I'm going to stick with Cup and Flowers.
Betting wise, I'm willing to roll the dice on Pickens more from a betting or DFS point of view, since this doesn't have, it has less ramifications on it than in somebody's fantasy championship. Like, I do see a world where Pickens gets into the end zone, but when it comes to fantasy, Flowers and Cooper Cup is where I'm going to lean. I think the volatility of Pickens coming, it's hard to trust it in the fantasy championship.
Yeah.
Where, like, I'd rather take his anytime touchdown score bet, and if it loses, it loses, to where tell somebody to use him in fantasy, and if he doesn't do well, you're losing the championship. Where Zay Flowers and Cooper Cup, I think they both bring somewhat of a higher floor than George Pickens.
Yeah, I'm there with you. Michael said, with a $2 super, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Said Andrews, Njoku, or Chig, Chargers D, Bills, or Raiders. Bills defense for me against a banged up Jets team. Again, I just think that this defense is going to come out mad after what happened last week, and I think McDermott's going to have them right. Now, the tight ends is tough. I'm not starting Chig over Njoku or Andrews, but Njoku did get a lot of volume last week, and I do like the Miami Dolphins defense, but I do think that Njoku could be a really nice play. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony, but I think the Texans defense has been pretty leaky against the tight end position. I could be wrong. I don't have it in front of me, but I think they have been favorable to the tight end. So Andrews might be a solid play here, especially if Flowers, I know he's banged up and I said I'm not worried, but if he gets injured or whatever, Andrews should be a pretty nice play for what it's worth.
Houston, at one point in this year, they were actually number 1 against tight ends. Then they started, since week 10, 15 to Laporta, 11 to Schoonmaker, 14 to Chig, 11 to Engram, and then 20 to Jonnu. And then last week, Kelsey and Noah Gray combined for 10. So they've been giving up production to the tight end position since around week 10. After early in the season, they were outstanding.
Yeah.
Now, and Mark, I don't think I can't sit Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I think you're going with Andrews. I think you're going with Andrews too. I think that's where I lean. Michael said Garendo, Hunt, Javonte Williams, Kenneth Walker, Madison, pick 2. Javonte gets a good matchup, but I mean, it looks like Jaleel McLaughlin is going to play. Tyler Batty is getting healthy, and Blake Watson just got called up to the 53-man roster. So I don't really want parts of that running back room because it's just too volatile. Garendo dealing with a hamstring injury. I don't know what to make of that right now. Honestly, I think you roll with Kenneth Walker, see what happens with Garendo, and if not, pivot to Madison. Madison's been fine. I mean, and he gets a good matchup as well.
Now, I would do the same. It would be Walker, Garendo, and then Madison would be my third.
Yeah. All right. So we're done with super chats for now. If anybody has anything else, feel free to send them in. Just what we're going to do is just we're super far back from the last time we were getting live chats that weren't supers. So I'm just going to start here. Where just resending your question and just let us know that you've been waiting with your question, and I will pull it for you. Unless we get another super chat, then we'll pull that up as well. But let's start here with Joshua. He said Lamb, Neighbors, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Mark Andrews start 3. Yeah, I mean, you're starting CeeDee Lamb, Cooper Rush is getting him the football a ton. Devontae Adams, and I think Neighbors. I think you roll with those 3 and you live with it. I know Keenan Allen's been hot. Maybe you go Keenan Allen over Neighbors, but I think Lamb and Devontae for sure. And then I could be swayed on Keenan Allen over Neighbors, but I think I'm still going to roll with Neighbors here in the spot.
Yeah, I'm going Lamb, Neighbors. I mean, Lamb, Adams, and Allen. I don't know. I riding a hot hand with Keenan Allen, and I was off Keenan Allen most of this year, but what he's been doing in this second half has been outstanding.
Yeah, Keenan Allen was probably my best call last week. I told a ton of people on the stream to start him. He has been just getting super peppered with volume. Yeah. I think I would just want to look at the injury report, see how Locke progresses, and just see what things look like. But it's definitely Lamb and Adams, and maybe check back with us, later this week, and maybe we can give you more of a definitive answer. But Anthony looks like he leans Allen. As of today, I lean Neighbors, and that could change as we get more information. Ralphie or Raphael said, please, anyone, Najee Harris or Hollywood Brown also starting Worthy. Please, anyone, and need input. I'm going Najee here. I think they're going to run the football more today with no Chris Jones. I think he's a good start today. And Hollywood Brown, I do think he's going to get more involved in this offense, like Anthony said before. I think he could provide a good game today. But I think Najee, the floor is safer, and I think he should provide a solid ceiling even with Chris Jones out in this game.
I agree.
Okay. At Craven said Ford or Marv, Hollywood Brown, PPR. I mean, let me ask you here: are you that off of Marv that you would start Hollywood Brown over Marv at this point? I think I would.
I think so. Marv has been such a disappointment because I was the one on his second half. I'm like, all right, because going into the bye week, he had a couple of big games against good defenses. I'm like, all right, he's starting to show some life. Cardinals are in a playoff spot. And the second half, his schedule opened up, and it's been terrible. I don't know if I can trust him. I like Jerome Ford here, honestly. Back-to-back games over 18 PPR, 24 last week. He's getting it done as a receiver. And I think the younger Dorian Thompson-Robinson actually helps the cause for Jerome Ford with checkdowns. He had 5 targets last week with Robinson under center.
Yeah, I think I would go with Ford as well. Robert Goldman said, hi, Anthony and Pete. Happy holidays. I think Robert was in your Scott Fishbowl draft.
Yep. Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Happy holidays, Rob.
Happy holidays. Yeah. Michael said, pick anyone up other than Harrison and Brown. Cust Hockey said, would you start Stroud or May this week? Drake May against the Chargers. Stroud, I'm going to go with May at this point. And I do like the Chargers defense, but I think May provides rushing upside, and Chargers secondary isn't great. I would go with May. Stroud losing Tank Dell. I think Joe Mixon is going to be featured more in this game. I think I would roll with May in this matchup.
Yeah. And we got Stroud going today against Baltimore.
Yeah.
And there's obviously no Diggs, no Tank Dell, and I think that actually helps Dalton Schultz. Baltimore's secondary is a little bit leaky, but what I keep going back to is that playoff game last year where C.J. Stroud was eaten alive by Baltimore. Again, it was a Mike McDonald defense, a separate, but a different Baltimore defense. But I just don't know how much I trust that situation.
Yeah.
I'd rather just go Drake May.
Me too. All right, let's see. Emin All these names are crazy, guys. Pat or Chig. I think Pickens plays helps out Pat. Honestly, I think I would go with Chig in this spot. I liked Freiermuth last week. I think I would go with Chig just because the volume has been there. We at least know that the volume should be there. I know Pickens. I think Pickens probably opens up the offense a little bit more. And you could make the case, right? I mean, Freiermuth against the Chiefs' defense, they've been leaky against the tight end pretty bad. But yeah. I think I would go with Chig in this spot.
I would say Chig is probably a little bit safer because it seems like if Freiermuth doesn't score, he brings a very low floor. He's like a 3 or 4 target guy a week.
Yeah.
And plus, we saw it last week. Last week was the Pat Freiermuth week, and Michael Pruitt gets the love.
Yeah. Yeah. Nord said T or Pickens standard TikTok. Thanks. Merry Christmas. I would go with T Higgins in this one. I mean, there's a possibility, right? That sorry, I had to sneeze there. Yeah, I mean, I think I would maybe go with Pickens. I don't know. This one's really tough for me because I don't think Surtain's going to cover Jamar Chase a lot, but this secondary is good for Denver, and it's not great weather. I think I roll with Pickens here. I think he is probably the safer play, and I think as long as he doesn't get re-injured, but T. Higgins can get injured any game. We've seen that. I mean, he's always banged up. I think I go Pickens here.
I like T. Higgins because if we are going to assume that Surtain's going to be tied up with Jamar Chase, this could be a nice opportunity for Higgins. And Higgins been hot.
Yeah, he has been. Still think, I mean, maybe it's Broncos bias. They did get Riley Moss back this week, and that secondary looks completely different when he's in the game. And I do think the weather could be a factor in this one as well.
And Higgins, I'm just saying, is dealing with knee and ankle injuries and was limited in practice yesterday.
Yeah, I did see that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
God. I think if you need the floor, I am going Higgins still for a floor. But if you need more ceiling, then go Pickens.
Me too. Bryce said Mahomes or Stafford. I'll go with Mahomes here.
Yeah, I'm here with Mahomes as well.
Yeah. Caleb or Mahomes. I'm going to go with Mahomes here over Caleb.
That's close, but I would still go Mahomes. I love Mahomes this week.
Yeah. Okay. Mobius, 1 PPR flex Mixon at home against the Ravens or Ladd at the Patriots. I do think they're going to lean on the run with Mixon, but I'm going to go with Ladd against the Patriots. They're going to move Ladd around, and that volume for Ladd has just been too good to pass.
And Mixon's been quiet during the second half a little bit. I know, I think it was like about a month ago, we started quieting down, not scoring as many touchdowns, and that, or can we see Mixon kind of pick up for, no more Tank Dell and the lack of receiving weapons? Do they turn to him more? But in the same breath, Baltimore has a good run defense. So I think Ladd McConkey is the safer play.
Yeah. By the way, guys, like I said before, if we have 60 people here watching on YouTube, please give us a like on YouTube. It helps us out tremendously. If you're not subscribed to the show already, do so. Whether it's fantasy, we have a lot of different things coming down the pipe for the offseason, whether it's NFL talk, NFL draft, offseason dynasty, a lot of different things going on. And make sure you send in your question again. I did say that we're going to kind of restart here. We're at Mobius now, and we're going to go to BM, but everything else underneath is where we are rolling with comments. So resend in your question. Let us know that you've been waiting, and we'll make sure to try to get to it. BM said Joe Mixon or Aaron Jones this week. I'm going to go with Aaron Jones over Mixon this week.
Yeah, I will too. Again, the whole Mixon situation can go either way. If they were playing most other front sevens, I would say go Joe Mixon because they're going to lean on him. But and I have it in front of me since week 11, he's had one game over 10 PPR points where he lit up Jacksonville. Every other game, 9.5, 10.6, 8.1. And this is another tough matchup.
Yeah. Yeah. This one's tough. Scotchman said, would you play Warren or Pacheco today?
Wow.
Yeah, that is tough. I do think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to rely on the run game, and Warren has been getting more involved as a receiver. Man, I want to check out how many he got a decent amount of targets in the pass game, I thought, last week.
He's had Warren since week 11, 4 targets in every game but one, and then in 2 out of his past 3 had 5. So he had 5 targets last week, and again 5 in 2 out of his past 3.
Yeah, I mean, I still think I go with Pacheco. I think I go with Pacheco. I think, like you said, I think they're going to have to try to get him going, and I do think he's not going to catch the passes. But I think I would ride with Pacheco. TJ Watt's banged up right now. I think we just saw what happened. I mean, the Steelers' run defense is not what it used to be. Now, this is not Derrick Henry. Isaiah Pacheco is not Derrick Henry, but I think things should open up for this offense with Hollywood Brown back in the mix, and I would go with Pacheco here.
Yeah, I'm going Pacheco as well. It's I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's the foot, that lower body injury could be slowing him down a little bit because, Hunt. He's been better than Pacheco, but it's not like Hunt's he's not playing game-changing football.
He's just scoring touchdowns.
Yeah, he got to the end zone last week for the first time since week 9. So the Chiefs' run offense overall has not been great. But yeah, I would still trust Pacheco over Jaylen Warren. It's a little bit of a better matchup.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Could you pick one for me? Ford, J.K. Dobbins, Marv, Hollywood Brown, flex. I have Chase and Smith as wide receivers. I'll go with J.K. Dobbins in this spot. Patriots' run defense isn't great. We just saw James Cook put up 31 PPR points against them. I'll go with J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, I'll roll with Dobbins coming off the injury as well.
Okay, cool. And then Ghost said pick 2 full PPR, Henry, A-Chain, or James Cook. Yeah, I mean, I think A-Chain is locked in at this point. It's really between James Cook and Henry. Both guys have been phenomenal. I think I would go with Henry. Big bruising back on a short week in the cold. I think I would go with Henry over James Cook, and I would roll with A-Chain.
Cook's been prolific this year, surprised the hell out of me with how much usage he gets. And sometimes when he's not getting the usage, he's just really, really efficient. But how much are they going to need James Cook this week against the Jets? And then you got Derrick Henry. Like, they brought in Derrick Henry for games like this. Late in the year, you need to have it to either for playoff positioning or otherwise. And it's Houston in Houston. This could be a signature Derrick Henry game. So I think I'll roll the dice and go Derrick Henry, as hard as it is to sit James Cook, because I'm not sitting Devin Achane. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. I was going to say, the only thing I worry about with A-Chain is the weather with Miami's offense. Does that worry you? But he did have a good game last time he played in cold weather against the Packers.
It's the pass catching for Achane that makes him matchup proof to me, because as bad as Tua can be in the cold, you just got to get it to Achane on a short throw, and Achane does the rest.
Yeah, and this is a week where they're going to – I mean, Waddle, I don't know if he's playing. He didn't play last week. And A-Chain's been the most consistent offensive playmaker, and they need to win. This is a chance to get into the playoffs.
Here's a staggering stat. And when you were saying, because I thought you were a little nuts saying Achane could be the number 1 player off the board, but as I'm looking at Achane right now, he's had 8 games this year with 7+ targets, including 4 straight. That type of volume, that CMC type of pass catching volume he's getting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was worried about him. You were on A-Chain more than I was. I did get A-Chain in a few drafts because I think my fears were similar to some others about the how he would hold up, and he fell in a lot of drafts for me. But yeah, I mean, he's just been phenomenal. Fredo with another $10 super. Appreciate it, man. Said I have Chase Brown on the bench. I have Thomas Jr. as my flex, but I don't know how to get Chase in the lineup. I have Williams and Barkley already, unless I bench Thomas or McLaurin for him. Williams, are we talking Javonte Williams? What Williams are we referring to here? I'm trying to think what other running back am I?
It has to be Jamal. Hey, Jamal, you didn't get the championship with Jamal.
I mean, maybe he's talking Javonte then. I would think it has to be Javonte. If it is Javonte, you're playing Chase Brown, even if Javonte has the better matchup. That's just a rotation that I don't want any part of right now.
Yeah.
I would go with Chase Brown. If that's the case, send in another message and let us know if maybe we're reading that wrong. But yeah, I mean, you're not benching Thomas and you're not benching.
What other Williams?
Maybe Jamison Williams, but he's talking about a running back, it looks like. So
I'm probably using Chase Brown over most Williamses at receiver and running back.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah.
Because Jamison and Jamison, Jamal, Javonte. Who am I missing?
I can't think of anybody else. I don't think anybody else. Yeah. Kyron. Wow. Big brain. Yeah, going Kyron over Chase Brown probably. I think.
Yeah, and he gets the Arizona too. Yeah, so okay, now I see why you have Chase on the bench. So it's basically
no, he's got Chase in the well. Yes. Sorry.
So do you like Chase Brown over Brian Thomas or McLaurin? And I think I'm not setting up a McLaurin against Atlanta in that secondary.
Neither, and I can't sit Brian Thomas right now. So yeah, I think unfortunately, unless you like Williams over Chase Brown, but I don't. So I think you ride with what you have here.
Brian Thomas is like the only. There's a consideration, but yeah,
I can't believe we didn't realize that he was talking about.
It's the most obvious Williams, but it's
yeah. Overcome with the $5 super set. Tempting to start Bryce Young over Mahomes, playing for a job and against Bucks pass funnel potential shootout. But man, Chiefs vying for a bye. I like Bryce Young. I think I'm still starting Mahomes over him, but I do like Bryce Young this week. I don't think it's crazy to be going back and forth. He gets a good matchup. But look, Bucks are playing for a playoff spot too. I mean, they got punked last week against the Cowboys. I think I'm still going with Mahomes here in a prime time spot.
Yeah, I feel like Mahomes is a safer play, and even if Bryce Young out, like I think there's more volatility with Bryce Young.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let me get back to where we were in the comments here. Thank you for the super chats, guys. We did get one more super chat. Let me pull that. Rock out said Schultz or Okonkwo, but I already have Collins in PPR. I'm okay still rolling with Schultz here. The reason that Schultz earned his contract this year with the Texans was because of the injuries, and he stepped up at the back end of the year for the Texans last year. I would go with Schultz, and I would be okay with it even if you have Collins in PPR over Chig.
I like I like Schultz a lot today.
Yeah.
I don't mind going Schultz and Collins in the same lineup against Baltimore because I don't like Mixon today against that front seven. That Baltimore secondary is leaky. And plus, like Schultz has been the guy whenever we saw a wide receiver out. And now they got two top receivers out.
Yeah. Chris Ant said the same question, so I just pulled that. But Shadif said Wilson, Worthy, or Hollywood. It's between Worthy and Wilson for me. There is a little bit of squeaky wheel going on with Wilson and this Jets team right now in the media. He does not seem happy, but he's been getting a lot of targets. I think Worthy is the higher upside play. I think Wilson is the safer floor play, in my opinion. I think the volume is there for Wilson, but I think the big playability is more there for Worthy right now.
If you just need one, I'm going Worthy. But if I had to rank them, I'm going Worthy, Hollywood, Wilson.
Wow. Okay.
I think Hollywood could potentially like his touchdown odds are like in the plus 200s depending on the book, and that's something worth sprinkling. He had eight targets last week, 27% offensive snaps.
Yeah. Yeah. We are at the 12:50 mark. The game's start in 10 minutes. We'll roll for another 5, and then we'll get out of here. We'll try to rip through these quick. Eli the Reaper said Love or Anthony Richardson this week. Man, I think I go with Love. I think it'll be a higher scoring game. I know they've been running the football a lot, but this is not a cake matchup where they can just run the football out and not rely on Jordan Love to throw the football. And the Vikings' run defense is good, so I would go with Love here.
Ooh, see. I don't want to be blinded by what we saw on Monday night because Love didn't look good, and I get he didn't have to. Maybe they were overlooking the Saints for this Minnesota game. As much as I like Richardson, I think you got to go Love because this game, there's so much playoff location on the line. And Minnesota's defense, they are very good. But you can score the football on them throwing it. So, yeah, I'll go Love. Again, just don't – I think he might – because I would be if I was, sitting in their seat. Like, Jordan Love did not look good the other night.
Yeah. Jay said best captain showdown lineup for Baltimore and Kansas City. I couldn't really tell you. I mean, I didn't roll out any DFS lineups today. I don't think Anthony did either. I think if you're looking at a sneaky play, I do think to Anthony's point, I think Hollywood Brown is probably a good bet. He's probably might be the cheapest wide receiver in that lineup for Kansas City.
Yeah. Wait, Baltimore, they're not playing each other. That's why I'm like, what's going on?
I would say this. Honestly, this is going to sound weird, but like I'd have to take a look. I don't know if Justice Hill is playing, but Rashee Ali could be an interesting like last throw of the dart. Because when you're playing in these best ball, I mean these DraftKings DFS games, sometimes you're looking for a dart throw at low ownership, and with Henry, like Rashee Ali is going to take that Justice Hill receiving role, and I don't know if Justice Hill is playing. I'd have to take a look.
What happened to Keaton Mitchell? Like they activated him, and because Keaton Mitchell would be the sneaky play.
He would be, yeah, he would be a sneaky play too. I think Ali, got on the field more last week after the injury, though, and he looks like he factors into more of that receiving work than Keaton Mitchell.
I mean, for the late game, I don't do a lot of DFS. Dalton Schultz would be I would just throw him in the captain role. I don't know, call it a gut feeling. Schultz has been kind of picking it up the past few games.
Yeah.
And let's.
We did get another super chat, by the way.
Okay.
Here for the meme said Garrett Wilson, Najee Harris, Breece Hall, Shakir Swift, Hollywood. Can you rank these guys for me? I think I would go with Breece Hall at number 1 here. Then Najee Harris, then Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, Hollywood Brown, Shakir, and then Swift. I think Anthony would be switching, obviously, Hollywood Brown and Garrett Wilson. But I think the running backs are the highest ones that I want. I think Breece Hall, if Aaron Rodgers is hurt, I think Breece Hall against that Buffalo run defense is a good play. So
you want to rank who does Chicago have again? I feel like we talked about them with so much Keenan Allen.
Seattle.
And Swift has been running a little bit better. I would rank them. I would say Breece Swift, Hollywood Brown, Wilson, Shakir.
So Najee would be the last guy out of the list?
Maybe over Shakir.
Really? Okay.
I love Najee. I don't know. They haven't been the usage hasn't been great for Najee Harris down the stretch.
That's fair. I get it.
It's like past 2 games, 6 carries and 9 carries.
Yeah.
He's not getting that early in the year, he was roughly 20 touches, 19 touches a game.
Yeah, I think Russ is getting a little and call me biased because of the Denver stuff, but I just do think that he's getting figured out a little bit more. And I just think that they're going to try to run the football and get back to running the football and running play action off of it and trying to establish the run. So that's partially a big reason why I like Najee this week.
And again, Swift has not been great, but some of the highlights we are seeing, he looks like he's getting going a little bit, under 10 PPR points since week 12. But he's getting more volume right now than Najee Harris, and the matchups middle of the pack against Seattle.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get to this last super chat. And then, guys, apologize. We're running on an hour 30 here. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back Friday. We might be here Saturday and Sunday to get you through these matchups here. Chig, Ertz, or Kraft. I kind of like Kraft in this matchup. I think he has the highest chance to score a touchdown, but I think Chig is the safest play out of these three.
Yeah, and it's Jacksonville they get this week. Kraft, middle of the pack matchup against Minnesota. I do like a high scoring game here. But earlier this year against Minnesota, he had one of his more productive 17.3 PPR points, a season high 9 targets, 6 for 53 and a touchdown. I'm actually going to go Kraft.
Yeah, I like Kraft for the ceiling. I think Chig is the safest play, but yeah, it's all about your tolerance. But that's going to do it for us, guys. Appreciate everybody that came out on the holiday. We'll be here tomorrow. Catch us then, and good luck with your matchups. And we will see you guys next time.